Hey everyone, today we're wrapping up the section of email marketing in this list of 25 things I do to grow my blogging business. And we're talking about creating an email marketing editorial calendar. My name's Leslie Peterson, and I help bloggers turn their modest websites into thriving online enterprises with SEO, email marketing, and a little hard love encouragement to always move forward consistently and with a plan. I'm not generally a fan of editorial calendars when it comes to posts, to blogging posts. I do have a list of articles that I'd like to write, and a list of articles that I need to write, and a list of articles that I've assigned out to the writers who write for us. But I don't have an editorial calendar where I'm going to post this article on this day, because it generally doesn't matter. The sooner I have an article ready to go, the sooner I want it up on Google so it can rank as fast as possible. But when it comes to email marketing, I absolutely use an editorial calendar. I find that prior to having an editorial calendar, it took me a lot longer to write my newsletter because I was just sitting in front of the computer kind of staring at a blank screen for almost half the time because I was trying to figure out what I should write. And then I would come up with an idea and then I'd realize, okay, I just wrote about that idea 3 months ago. And then I had a lot of articles that were never seeing the light of day when it came to my newsletter. So it was a lot easier for me to determine what I was going to write. It was easier to plan the best thing to go into the newsletter at any given week because I knew what the upcoming holidays were. It also is a great thing to make available to your clients who like to buy into your newsletter. And it helps you to rotate personas. We've talked about personas in the past, those things that, those facets of your business that you categorize your content into for the purposes of a lead magnet. But you want to make sure, when I'm thinking about the Atlanta Traveler personas, we have outdoor adventures, weekend getaways, date nights, Florida, coastal adventures. I can make sure that I'm rotating through all of those personas each week instead of doing, let's say, 4 weeks of Florida back to back to back. So that way I make sure that they appeal to a wider audience. And then, as I mentioned, it also helps me to ensure that I'm sharing unique articles each and every year. So those are the reasons why I do an editorial calendar, why I've fallen in love with an editorial calendar. And I want to help you with some steps in creating your own. So the first step is that you want to pick a tool. If you're just getting started, if you're financially conscious right now, then using Google Sheets or Excel is the perfect tool for you. I used that for many years. You should not be ashamed of that. It is an awesome source as a tool for your editorial calendar. If you're using a project management tool, then obviously you're going to want to use that. I am in love with and addicted to Monday.com. That is my tool of choice. I have used Asana in the past and ClickUp. So those work as well. Whatever project management tool you have, go ahead and use that. Obviously, if you are at that place where you're like, I don't have a project management tool, but I think that I should, I would highly encourage you to take a look at Monday. It is amazing. Now, after you've got your tool, whether it's a spreadsheet or Monday or whatever the case may be, then what you'll want to do is create a sheet, a spreadsheet or a simulation of a sheet based on what project management tool you're using, and identify all the dates for the next 52 weeks. So for example, we send a newsletter every Tuesday. And then we resend it on Friday to the people who didn't open, but I only need to worry about Tuesdays. So I've got a sheet with a list of the dates for every Tuesday for the entire year. And then I do this at every November. So in November, I'll do another list for the 52 weeks in 2024. And depending on how many articles you like to share in your newsletter, you'll want to create a space for each one of those. For example, we send 2 stories out in every newsletter. So for each week in those 52 dates, I have 2 spaces. So I have 104 lines on my spreadsheet. It's really easy, right? I do not recommend that you send out more than 2 links. We know that when you send more links, people are less likely to click on them. Now, What you'll hear from your friends sometimes is, well, our click-through rate is 12% or 14%. And what you'll find generally with people who have high click-through rates like that is that they have a lot of links, maybe 30, 40, 50 links in their newsletter. What that means is that each one of the links that they're sharing, whether it's their own content or a partner's content, are very diluted. So I recommend 1 to 2 links in your newsletter. That's going to really give the focus to any client that you're sending out in your newsletter and to your own content. It keeps people really focused and it doesn't kind of freak people out. If you are interested in hearing about the dynamics of offering too many options, I highly recommend the TED Talk on that. I'll try to link to that below in the show notes. Okay, so you've got a tool. You've got a spot for each one of your links. No more than 2 is my recommendation for each of the next 52 weeks. And then next to each one of those, you're going to want to indicate your idea for that week or for that spot. These ideas, I notate ideas in 2 ways. Number 1, I might have a specific article that I want to share. So for example, we have a pumpkin picking post that I know I'm going to share every single October. So I pick the date when I see the traffic begin to rise in my Google Analytics, and I pick the Tuesday closest to that, and that pumpkin post will go there. And it goes there every single year. It doesn't go there more than once a year, but it does go every single year. Or I might say, for example, when we went to Chattanooga earlier this year, as part of that trip, I told them I would write a post on things to do in Chattanooga and I would share it in my newsletter. So I knew when I was expecting to go to Chattanooga. I knew when I was expecting to have the article written. And so I just said in my list, hey, I don't have this article yet, but the things to do in Chattanooga article is going to go in the newsletter here. The flip side of that is you might not know the specific article that you want to go in the newsletter, but you might know the topic. So for example, I know that fall is really great in Georgia for glamping. So I look at, after I fill in all of the fall posts that I need to go in every year, like the pumpkin patches, then I look and see where I have an opening and I say, okay, I'm going to write about glamping here. And I just put the term glamping because I'm not sure if I'm going to share the glamping in Georgia, glamping in Tennessee, glamping in Florida. Maybe I'm going to do our glamping in Yellowstone. I don't know which one I'm going to share there, but I know I want to share something about glamping. So I just put a note to myself there. And you're going to go through that and fill out all 52 or 104 spaces with either a specific article or with the topic that you want to cover. And that's a great place to start. And then your editorial calendar is done. And what's super is, for example, if you're building that on Monday, then you can share that board. They call it, the sheets are called boards in Monday. You can share that board with your clients, with your customers. You can take a look at it, review it, make sure that you've got that the types of articles that you're sharing, i.e. those personas, are evenly spaced out, that you're not sharing glamping in the spring and in the fall, that you haven't picked the same article, 2 or 3 times. So you want different ideas, but also different articles. It's a great way, kind of review it. Maybe if you've got a partner that you work with, you can put that in front of them and get their feedback. Another thing I like to do, if I just have a day in the spring, I don't have anything to go in there, I'm not sure what I want to go in there, then I make a note to myself. My note to myself is usually, I don't know. But what I do on those days is I look at the current week's Mediavine report and see which one of my articles has the highest RPM, and I share that highest RPM article in there. And here's the other thing to point out. This is just kind of your list, your working list. It's designed for a couple things. It's designed to share with your customers. It's designed to make sure you don't repeat things, but it's not set in stone. So if you want to change your mind, you're welcome to change your mind. Isn't that fantastic? So having a plan doesn't mean that you have to do it. I would encourage you to do it so that you can get a little more organized. You can be a little more strategic about what you're doing. But if I get to fall and I'm just not feeling it when it comes to glamping on the day that it says I need to include glamping, and I think to myself, well, we just did this amazing hike and it reminds me of one we did, last year that I really want to share with everybody because it's beautiful for fall. Well, I can include that and take out the glamping. But what you'll do is you'll actually, before you start writing your newsletter with that new post, the new hiking post, in this example, you'll add it into your editorial calendar, and then you'll add a column that specifically says, this is the article that I am including, because that will allow you to look up and down the list, or in Monday, I actually get a checkbox that tells me if I've included it before, because maybe that fall hike is also a great spring hike, and I already shared it in the spring, and I just don't remember. So you'll want to check if you want to change your mind, check your editorial calendar before you begin writing, just to make sure that you haven't covered it in the last 12 months. Because it's really easy to continually talk about those things that were our favorites. You just want to make sure that you're not repeating something before you write the entire newsletter about that. And the other thing I want to mention is that as you share this with customers, or as you share the fact that you have positions open in your newsletter for people to purchase, you want to track that in your editorial calendar as well. So I might have a customer that comes to me and says, hey, we have this great XYZ that happens in the fall, and we want to be in your newsletter in the fall. So I can look in the fall and I can see where I already have a client scheduled, so I make sure I don't double book, because for me, for example, I only put one client in every newsletter. If you have 2 clients in every newsletter, that's okay. You just want to make sure you don't book a third, for example. But I can look through the list and I can see, okay, I don't have any clients in this week, and I can ask them if that week will work for them. Or I can say to myself, well, I really need to share the pumpkin patch because it goes out every year. People are expecting it, but I'll give up that glamping spot for a client. So it allows you to make sure you're not double booking clients, and also to make sure that you're giving up the right space and making sure that date aligns with your customer. We sell about, I would say, 75 to 80% of our newsletters include a client. I would love for you to get to that point also, and there's no way that you can manage availability without an editorial calendar of that capacity, especially because you also want to make sure that the emails going out before and after that client don't cover the same content. So for example, if I have a client who's purchased in June, they purchased something and they're in Florida and they're wanting me to share their information in Florida. Well, I want to make sure that the week before that and the week after that, we're not also doing Florida. So remember, we talked about this personas. We want to make sure that we're regularly rotating the types of content that our customers would be interested in. So you definitely need an editorial calendar to do that. So those are the steps that I recommend for putting your editorial calendar together. If this is a new concept for you, chances are you're not yet selling spaces into your calendar. So it's a lot easier. You have less to think about. I would really encourage you to take some time this weekend and at least put an editorial calendar together for the next 6 months. And again, what I do every November, usually between Thanksgiving and Christmas, when things are pretty slow in the blogging world, I sit down and I do an editorial calendar for the entire year that's coming out. And it's a really good excuse for me to contact my clients and prospects and say, hey, the 2024 editorial calendar's out. Here it is. If you're interested in securing a spot in the newsletter for next year, let me know. And we'll usually sell 20% of the spaces just from an email like that. So that's, if for no other reason, as an excuse to contact your customer base or your prospect base, that's another reason to do it. So those are the steps. Those are some do's and don'ts. I encourage you again to do it. I know some of you are saying to yourself, but Leslie, I'm not a planner. And I would say it's time to change your identity. It's time to say to yourself, I might not be a planner by nature, but I'm going to plan in my business because I'm ready to move to the next level. And you're not going to move to the next level by doing the same things you've always done. What you did naturally, what you've put into practice naturally is taking you to where you are. But if you want to go to that next place, then you're going to have to do things differently. And that starts with planning and consistency. And luckily, putting a plan together will help you with your consistency. I know you can do it. I know you've got it in you. And once you see how powerful it is, how easier it is, it makes your life in the long run, then taking on that planning as an identity will become a no-brainer.